So yeah, now we're moving to Vlad, who's a software developer for Terra. If you were paying attention to the Harmony presentation, he mentioned something called a stable coin and how you could put your money in there and get about 20% returns in a year, or even maybe more than that. Something really interesting, and that's what Terra actually specializes in. So here is Vlad. Vlad, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for the introduction. Yeah, like Tanner said, I'm currently a software engineering intern at Terra. I started a few months ago, and I just finished my last exam ever last night. So I'm going to be starting. I'm going to be starting full time as a software engineer and smart contract engineer for Terra starting May 2nd. So that being said, I'm going to share my screen real quick. Can everybody see this?
Yes, we can.
Good, awesome. So I'm going to be presenting a bit about Terra. And so we're going to go into the stable coins, what they are, and how Terra provides them. So welcome to the Web3 world according to the Terra blockchain. So first things first, what is the Terra blockchain? The Terra blockchain allows for the creation of any algorithmic stablecoin denominated in fiat currency. And algorithmic stablecoins mean that the supply is based on another currency called Luna. And so to mint these new currencies, say you want to create, for example, one US Terra, which is the USD denominated fiat currency, you would have to burn $1 worth of Luna. So if Luna is worth $100 at that time, if you want to mint 100 UST or create them, bring them into circulation, you would have to burn 1 Luna. And so you'd get 100 UST from that. That being said, we can create any algorithmic stablecoin. That means if you want to create the Canadian dollar, we have that. But if you want a currency that doesn't exist yet on the Terra blockchain from some country that you work in, you can submit a proposal through the chain and then they can create that as well. Terra has seen rapid growth and adoption. So currently it's the #2 blockchain by total value locked. And we have about $32.5 billion worth of assets locked up into the space. And this means it's locked up in any protocol, such as anchor deposits, loans, collateral deposits, and stuff like that. UST or US Terra is the largest US dollar stablecoin, the largest US dollar algorithmic stablecoin, and it's the third largest US dollar stablecoin right after Tether and USDC. But algorithmically, it is #1. And there's a lot of opportunity for new projects to become the top 20 protocols in the Terra ecosystem. There's only 12 protocols right now with over $100 million in TVL. And so that means potentially, if you want to start building on it, you have a good space to start growing. The UST market cap is currently 18.1 billion as of about 4 days ago. Since then, even it's grown by about 200 to 300 million. I believe it's at about 18.3 billion right now. So it's a very rapidly growing space. Next, why build on Terra? So why would you want to build your protocol on Terra over any other ecosystem? So for one, we have proof of stake. So that means it's fast, reliable, and scalable. Fast being 6.5 second average block times. And we have instant finality. Instant finality means once a block is proposed and voted on by the validators, it is impossible to take back. So once you have your transaction, you send it off onto the blockchain, 6.5 seconds. And after that, the transaction is settled and there's no way of reverting that. That being said, we have 1,000 to 10,000 transactions per second, depending on the transaction size. And transaction size can vary by how much data you send over and how complicated your smart contract logic is. Terra blockchain is also very reliable. It's never gone down, and it works on proof of stake. So we have a lot of validators keeping the network up. The Tendermint stack, which is the way consensus works. It's the consensus mechanism for the Terra blockchain. It's never failed in production. And this has been battle tested. Terra is not the only one that uses it. Basically, any Cosmos blockchain or Cosmos-enabled blockchain uses Tendermint. And Terra is scalable. So Terra is the largest proof-of-stake blockchain. It has a wide range of applications, including DeFi protocols, money markets, neobanks, which connect your assets to the real world. And we also have gaming. So if you do want to start developing, we have extensive developer toolkits in Python and JavaScript. And we also write our smart contracts in Rust using the CosmWasm framework or Cosmos WebAssembly. We also have a lot of open source libraries created by the community. And what's cool about Terra is since it's Cosmos enabled, you can take any tool or any smart contract from any other Cosmos enabled blockchain, and you can deploy it right on Terra as long as it uses the same tech stack, which is really cool. Next up, here's some ideas that you can build on Terra. So one thing is instant payments. There's a lot of services right now starting to spring up for enterprise applications, such as enterprise cards or corporate cards. Payment processing in the real world is becoming a thing. We have card management, card payment, expense management, bill payment, etc. Next up, you can create a DeFi protocol directly on Terra to leverage all the algorithmic stablecoins. Examples of these include insurance protocols. We have money market protocols such as Anchor for borrowing, putting up collateral and lending. Derivative markets are coming up. I know some people beginning to create options markets. And there's also a project coming out for Forex exchange or for exchanging different stablecoins and then matching them up to the real world values. You can also create gaming, metaverse, and NFTs. There's a product called Tix that creates real world ticketing system, kind of like Ticketmaster, using NFTs. There's different gaming protocols. And you can also create NFTs. And NFTs don't necessarily have to be static or just generative art. You can create mutable traits in these NFTs or dynamic traits. So these traits can change. An example is a project that came out where you can stake your NFT and then kind of use it to gain gold and experience, and then you can buy items for it. So there's a lot of stuff coming up with that. You can also build infrastructure and developer tooling, and we'll get more into that. And we also provide grants for those that want to build infrastructure. That being said, we have a lot of support for Terra projects, and we have a few different avenues that you can pursue if you want to start building on Terra. One of them is the Luna Foundation Guard, or LFG. These give out grants for open source development and infrastructure. So if you want to build a tool, for example, if you want to build a tool that tracks taxes, or you want to build a tool that helps out developers, you can apply for a grant, and this grant can cover, infrastructure costs. It can cover development costs, and you can apply through LFG for that. If you want to build a protocol or something that is more, profit oriented, if you want to make a profit from your project, you might be interested more into the venture arm. So Terraform Capital offers, venture funding, and we can also direct you to some venture partners that we have at terra.money/capital. We also provide funding for audits. Audits are super important. A lot of money gets locked into these smart contracts, and so you want to make sure that your smart contract is audited before you get millions of dollars in value locked inside of them. And so we give a reimbursement of up to $50,000 to audit your smart contract if you apply and your project is applicable. We also provide not only funding, not only money, but advisory. And we have a developer relations team. So the DevRels team helps with technical issues, development questions, and they match you up with people that know how to solve your particular problem or can help you. And we also help as well. So there's some links over there. And we have ecosystem growth leads, and these people help out with grants. They help out with the venture funding, and they help you get your project started on the more business development side. And You know, an example is I recently held a hackathon at my university, and that's the University of Ottawa in Canada. About 350 people showed up to that, and we had 20 projects that were submitted by the end of the 36 hours. And out of those 20 projects, we had 9 winners, and we actually ended up contacting 10 of those teams, and we're working with them to get them the development help and the funding that they need to bring their ideas to light. So we're always looking for fresh ideas, always looking for fresh talent, and saying that this space is growing quick is a very big understatement. There's a lot of opportunity, a lot of projects being built, but there's simply not enough developers for the amount of ideas and the amount of growth. And so we want as many developers building on Terra as possible. Next up, you might have heard that Terra is building a BTC reserve. And so this has been all over the news lately, and it's true. So if you remember, I mentioned before, to mint a Terra USD or a UST, you need to burn $1 worth of Luna. So you have $1 worth of Luna and you get 1 UST back. That's built into the system, and that's how you generate a UST or you mint it. So why would we need Bitcoin? Bitcoin kind of does the same thing. You're able to do exchange $1 worth of Bitcoin for 1 UST, and that system is going to be implemented in the very near future. But the point of Bitcoin is to create a reserve during times of large contraction. So you're unable to trade a UST back for BTC unless the value of UST falls below 0.98. So you can, but you're not going to be making a profit on that. So you can always add Bitcoin into the reserve, and then during times of contraction to help out Luna to stabilize the price during times of low demand for UST, we would have this Bitcoin reserve, and then that would be very appealing to people. They could trade in 1 UST, get 0.98 US dollars worth of Bitcoin back. And when the price depegs further than that, that becomes an arbitrage opportunity for people. And so during times like that, that is also going to keep the UST peg safe, and the UST is likely to repeg back to $1. And so, like I said, this de-risks the stability of the UST peg, and this adds on to our stability mechanisms already in place with Luna. And so that would avoid the death spiral for Luna. There's some talks about that on Twitter, by reducing the amount of Luna being minted. So if you want to burn 1 UST, you get $1 worth of Luna back. That generates a new Luna that gets put into the system. And during extreme times of contraction, instead of just using Luna, you're now able to use Bitcoin as well. And so the more BTC is in the reserve, the more that we can stabilize the peg in case it falls off. And this lowers the likelihood of Luna experiencing a bank run. And that's it for this presentation. So if there's any questions, I'd be very glad to answer them.
We have one question from the crowd.
Perfect.
Hello, how you doing? Thank you for the presentation. I'm a big Luna supporter. Got in at like $1, $2.
Awesome.
For securing Luna grants, what are you guys looking for in terms of, like, let's say I wanted to create a grant, or like think of, I got projects and ideas. Like, do you want an active work looking project? Do you want to see a team of people that's committed? Do you want to see like a white paper? Like, what are they looking for if you wanted to secure a grant?
Yeah, so this is a really good question. Basically, what we need is we need you to have a project idea, first of all. And then to secure the grant, you need to submit the grant application. You don't necessarily have to have a team, but this grant application requires a milestone-based roadmap. So you'd have milestones like get the website out, and then create feature 1, create feature 2. You'd create milestones, you'd create dates for those, and then you'd budget out how much money that you need for each one of those milestones. So say you have feature 1, which is, alpha version of your smart contract, for example, or version 1. Say you need 3 weeks and you need to pay a developer, or you could be the developer. You need to pay yourself X amount of money. You'd put down, I need to work for 40 hours a week for 3 weeks. That's 120 hours. And I need this much money. I need this much for infrastructure costs. And then you add that up for each milestone. You create a budget. Then at the end, you add those up, you get the sum. And then that's the amount of money that you would ask for your grant. Team is not required, but a solid idea and a good roadmap is of course required for the grant.
So this is a follow-up basically to what you just said. Is there like a template for when you're filling out the application, or is this just something like I should just kind of do some more research on in the back end?
Yeah, so give me a second. I'm gonna reshare my screen in a sec once I get the link. So you can go to lfg.org/apply. And that should bring you to the grant page. Or lfg.org/grants, and then you can go to /apply. Yeah. So I'll send that into the Zoom as a link. I know not all of you have access to the Zoom call right now, but Tanner can share that as well. And I also have an example of a community grant. So community grants are also a thing that you can get. And community grants come from the community pool directly on chain. And there's a good example of a milestone-based roadmap for the community grant. I'm going to send out a link for that as well. It was for this program called Terra, which is a tax tracking service. And they would allow you to input your wallet, track all your transactions that you've done for the last year, and then it would kind of generate a CSV tax report that you can import to tax websites. So there's the link for that. But I can also show you. I'll reshare my screen. All right. So here's Terra. This was a community grant proposal. This was on our forums. And then basically they had the grant proposal, project name, payment address, project overview, some details, why they think it's useful. They have their team members with the contact, and then they have their overview right here. So they said they had a total cost of $42,000. This would be converted to Luna, so they wanted their payment in Luna. And then here's their milestone 1. So their first milestone would be add support for dynamically adding new protocols. And then they said their full-time employees would be 1 for 40 days, and then that would cost $22,000. So they would pay their dev $22,000 to create the system. They specified exactly what that system would entail, what that milestone would entail. And then after that, they created different milestones. And then they would kind of do the same thing for every milestone. And then at the end, they would add it up into their overview right here. This is kind of what we're looking for grants.
Awesome. Gotcha. Quick question for you, Vlad. You said you're graduating. Congratulations to start full-time.
Thank you.
Thinking back to your freshman, sophomore year, where was your mind? Did you plan to work in the space? If you could go back, if you were a freshman today, what would you do differently?
Oh man, this is a good question. I get asked this quite often. I don't think I would do anything differently. Honestly, I'm not even in computer science. I'm in computer engineering. So a lot of people told me, a lot of people actually asked me throughout my university career what I'm doing in computer engineering, because I don't like hardware at all. I don't like electronics, but my dad kind of made me go into computer engineering because he was like, yo, engineering sounds better than science, so you have to do it. I was always interested more in computer science though. So I pursued that, but my first internship basically was just some random application. I would just apply to everything that I saw. And this was right after my freshman year. I ended up applying to this company, and they would make me do data analytics. So it was a lot of big data. And then that I didn't really pursue that exactly. But the next year, turns out one of my professors was the VP at that company, and he invited me to do research. And so for my second year, for my second year, I actually ended up doing research for him. And I ended up publishing a research paper And what I would do is I would build models, build machine learning models in the NLP space. So that had nothing to do with DeFi, nothing to do with crypto. And I would just do a bunch of NLP work. Even last year, my previous internship last summer, that was also NLP with AI. So again, nothing to do with DeFi. And then last February or last January, my friend got me back into trading. And I used to trade back when I was 16 or 17 years old. He got me back into trading. I was never really good at it. So I ended up buying, a bunch of Luna, and then I took it off chain. And that was, I took it on chain off of a centralized exchange. And that was the first time I've ever done something like that. And then since then I got, super into Terra and how it worked. And I started researching. I started using DeFi protocols that didn't involve a centralized exchange. I started using those. And then after I got pretty good at knowing what they are, I got good at reading white papers. I kind of got more into smart contracts. And I was like, okay, now I want to do things that not everybody can do. I want to specialize more into the computer science side of things. So I ended up, heavily researching smart contracts. At first, I would do this by taking already existing smart contracts that are deployed on Terra, and then I would interact with them through CLI or anything that didn't use the direct UI. After that, I decided that I wanted to build my own smart contracts. So I got, into a group with one of my friends. And he was like, I have an idea, but I don't know how to code. And I knew how to code, but I didn't have any ideas. So it's kind of a perfect match. I ended up building a wager contract. It was for video games such as CSGO, for example. If you have a 1v1, you would essentially open up a lobby, you toss, say, 100 UST in there. Someone would see that lobby, they would match. They'd say, okay, I think I'm better than this person. They would match, you'd get into the game, and then whoever won that game, they'd kind of get the payment back. So I created a smart contract for that. That was my first ever smart contract. And then after that, I moved on to different projects. I created NFT staking mechanisms for one of the DAOs, or decentralized autonomous organization on Terra. It's called Intern Capital. I worked on a project for them. I worked on a few of my own personal projects. And then I actually got into a job on Terra or in Terra through Twitter. So they sent out a tweet. They're like, we're hiring all Rust developers. And then I replied to the tweet and I was like, I'm graduating in May. Are you guys hiring for them? And then they essentially replied back and they said, okay, well, why don't you intern right now? Why do you have to wait? And so I never had a job during school because I was kind of worried that, my grades would drop, I'd stop getting scholarships. But, I was like, okay, this is my last semester, might as well. And so I did it, and it was a really good decision, I think. I ended up working for this protocol called Nebula, and that basically creates clusters of tokens, kind of like an index. And you're able to then, buy into the cluster, and then you capture the value of all the underlying tokens inside of it. I worked for that project. I created a bot for rebalancing these clusters when they go out of weight. And I was also able to run a hackathon. So Terra sponsored a hackathon at my school, and that was super exciting. So yeah, back to the original question. I wasn't always into DeFi. I actually didn't really understand the decentralized space until just a little bit over a year ago. So it's not too late to start, and it doesn't take that long to get into it. But if you want to get into it, I heavily recommend getting into Twitter, because that's where the community is, and you get basically direct access to all the developers and all the creative minds in the space.
Thank you so much, Vlad.
no
Quickly,
problem.
do you want to drop like your Twitter handle or anything for the
Yeah, sure.
crowd to connect with you?
Yeah, so my Twitter is Vlad JDK. Hang on, I'm just gonna open Twitter real quick. Okay. So this is my Twitter. It's at Vlad JDK. And yeah, I tweet. I stopped tweeting for exams. I had to focus, but I'm gonna get back into it. So you guys, if you follow me, you're gonna be seeing quite a bit soon.
All right, looking forward to it. All right. Thank you again so much. Can we get a round of applause for Vlad?
Thank you guys. I appreciate you all showing up, and
Hey,
hopefully see you on Terra soon.
For sure, for sure.